This is Tom Bernanke, and today I'm going over the big magnesium secret. These blew my mind when I learned this. 66% of people are magnesium deficient. It helps in over 300 enzymes, and I'm talking of big, measurable, meaningful changes in your life. And these are groundbreaking studies that absolutely blew my mind. I'm gonna tell you about the 3 big secrets, how to take it, how to diagnose your deficiency, and we're starting right now. A little bit of background on magnesium. On average, 60% or more of people don't get adequate amounts of magnesium in your diet. Magnesium is an element on the periodic table. It's a mineral. It's not a vitamin. The role of magnesium is that it serves as a cofactor for over 300 biochemical reactions within the body. Magnesium has importance in protein synthesis, nerve function, bone growth, blood pressure regulation, diabetes and glucose regulation, and the single biggest one is your arteries and your heart. And that's gonna be one of the big secrets and what happens specifically in hard data. When we eat magnesium, 30 to 40% of that magnesium is not absorbed in our gut, so it's lost. And 80% of magnesium is estimated to be lost in processed diets. We're eating a lot of processed sugar, a lot of processed meats. Everything's designed to last long and store on the shelves. The magnesium's gone from that. And what's even worse is historically, as we developed through biblical times and through evolutionary times, however you want to look at it, we drank water that was not desalinated. Essentially now, the salts are taken out of our water. Whereas before in the river water, our streams, there used to be a ton of magnesium in there. So we would get overwhelmed with magnesium as we drank that water. It's gone in our food, it's gone in our water. No wonder we're very deficient. Why is this so mind-blowing? Tests suck for magnesium. As I'm reading a lot of these papers, when people get their blood test at the hospital, that just measures your blood magnesium. That has nothing to do with how much is in your bone, how much is in your cells, how much is in your mitochondria. That's really where the deficiency can develop. The thought is that due to water, farming techniques, and our food being processed, as much as 80 to 90% of the magnesium sources that we used to get as humans have disappeared over the last 100 years. And you notice a lot of new diseases have started showing up during that time. Is that a coincidence? I'll touch on that in the big secrets with evidence. With magnesium, there's a lot of unique body mechanisms of absorption, compartment handling that are different than other nutrients. The average adult should have about 22 to 26 grams or more of magnesium. Approximately 60% of that should be stored in your bone, 39% is within the cell, and only 1% is in our bloodstream. This is the crazy part. We're measuring normal values of just 1% of the magnesium. Nothing's measuring how much is in the bone, nothing's measuring how much is in the cells. And this is 99% of the magnesium deficiency that could be occurring. That's why a blood test is not really useful. Don't worry, that's not the big secret either. And I have another great video about magnesium and how it can help with your sleep and your chronic pain. Because when I have surgery patients and chronic pain, sometimes getting them on magnesium, patients report that they're feeling a lot better. There's something called the synapse. When 2 nerves touch, they release a bubble of a chemical messenger out one end, and it goes to a receptor on the other end, activating that nerve to send a signal somewhere else. Nerves that regulate pain release something called glutamate, and it goes and attaches to an NMDA receptor, which transmits pain. When NMDA is activated, calcium comes into that cell and that nerve to create a signal. In chronic pain, basically there's constant pain. It's an overactive pathway. Now there's things to break up that pathway like ketamine, but ketamine is potentially a dangerous drug with some severe side effects, so that might not be the best option. But there's something called an antagonist, and magnesium is that antagonist. It can block those NMDA receptors, essentially helping with that pain feedback. So that's the theory. It's pretty complicated, but that's kind of the rough thought thus far. So magnesium is an antagonist, so it blocks the NMDA receptors, and it also works on pain in other ways. There's some studies that show that it can help with sleep. So specifically, there was a study with 9 clinical trials. 3 were for neuropathy, 2 were for chronic regional pain syndrome, and 1 was for migraine. There was also a study that showed that low magnesium is associated with poor sleep. And another study showed that improving that magnesium deficit can help sleep. And we already know that poor sleep is associated with pain perception. There was also a 6-week study that showed magnesium supplementation in those deficient did help with people's moods. There was also a 12-week study with 600 milligrams of magnesium in those deficient that helped with migraines. And there was a series of 25 studies that basically looked back at magnesium, and it did help with sugar absorption and insulin sensitivity. So these on the surface sound amazing, but there's some concerns that these studies aren't overwhelming. Magnesium is very important, very hard to measure. Don't worry, there's a trick, and I'm gonna go over that where it's cheap. I'm not selling a big expensive product. It should get you to good levels fairly quickly. Dosage should be about 400 plus milligrams per day for men, about 300 milligrams for women. I don't really get into the kids' doses. Always check with your doctor for that. I'm always a big fan of skipping supplements if you can, so food can help. A cup of almonds, 78 milligrams. So in order to get your daily dose, you would have to eat 5 cups of almonds. That's a lot. And that's kind of the highest food. You'd have to eat like 5 handfuls of spinach. You'd have to eat like 5 cups of beans, maybe like 10 cups of beans now that I look at it. So basically all these foods, you'd have to eat them in very high amounts. And as an example, a small bar of chocolate would have 91 milligrams of magnesium. You'd have to eat basically 4 bars of chocolate to get your magnesium. So that's to give you the scale. Sometimes it could be hard, and that's why 50% of people are magnesium deficient. And the tough part is 30 to 40% of that magnesium is not even absorbed through your gut. So you'd probably have to double all those numbers or add an extra 33%. Here's a video on supplements you should not be taking for your magnesium. So as a summary, 66% of people don't get enough. We don't absorb 30 to 40% of it, and 80% is lost in our diet. The rest is found in chlorophyll, which is every plant product. These are common options that are meant to be laxatives. So magnesium oxide is very common. It's meant to loosen your stool, not to give you magnesium. Same with hydroxide, that's milk of magnesia, just to loosen the stool. Magnesium carbonate, so these are antacids. You don't actually absorb these. And magnesium sulfate, same thing. It's a laxative. You're not meant to absorb these. So don't take these. They're not beneficial in terms of acquiring magnesium. Here's a video on my favorite magnesium supplement. So I link all these charts down below in case this is going too quick for you. And then we went over the bad ones. Now here's the good magnesium supplements. Magnesium citrate is really cheap. It's my favorite. Basically, I don't get the pill one. I get the powder. The powder is cheap. It's like 15 bucks. It's going to last you for years. The downsides are it does loosen your stool. For a lot of people, that's actually a good thing. Another good one's magnesium glycinate. This is good absorption, no loose stool if that's a problem for you. Another good one is magnesium threonate. It's said to have good brain and cognitive function. That's what everybody says, but I can't really find any major studies that correlate this. Same with magnesium orotate, good for athletes, more energy. What does that mean? There's no real studies that I can find. I think it's just like random claims supplement manufacturers make. Magnesium taurate, same thing, good for diabetics is what they say. But again, is there proof? Who knows? Magnesium malate, same thing. No real proof that these do anything different. So go with the magnesium citrate and make it easy. The good news is with overdosing, yes, it's dangerous, but the Office of Dietary Supplements notes too much magnesium for food does not pose a real risk. And they have like a little star next to that because everything could be a risk. And that's the medical disclaimer. As long as your kidneys are not shut down and as long as you don't have a bowel obstruction, you will get diarrhea and get rid of excess magnesium if you overdose, and your kidneys will pump it out. If for some reason you like severely overdose, you'll get a little bit of diarrhea, you'll get some stomach cramping, and you'll pee it out. You're not gonna have a heart attack and die in all but the most insane of cases. There are some risk factors, and there are cases. When you go on PubMed.com, there's cases of people overdosing. The ones that I could find, almost all of them are people trying to get the wrong dose by IV directly into the bloodstream, or people who like fell asleep in a magnesium salt bath and too much absorbed through their skin. That's the only ways I've really seen people have these issues. or if they had kidney failure. Realistically, in all but the most extreme of cases, taking magnesium for the normal person should be completely safe. Because there's a million people watching this with crazy situations, that's why I always put the medical disclaimer. I read a great book. It's called The Magnesium Secret, but it's by Carolyn Dean, MD. And she basically said, the only time you have to worry is if you have severe kidney disease, like kidney failure specifically, like if you're on dialysis. You have an extremely slow heart rate, so if you have severe heart problems, if you have myasthenia gravis, which has to do with muscle problems and magnesium, and with bowel obstruction. So only those four things. If you don't have those four things, odds are you're pretty good. There's very few reports. The biggest side effect is diarrhea for the average person that you have to worry about. With the upside, it's gonna help your heart, it's gonna help your muscles, it's gonna help your diabetes, it's gonna help your blood sugar. There's reports of it helping dementia. So all these things are amazing for what's essentially a dirt cheap medication that's completely safe. This is what blew my mind. Here's the big secret number one. Don't worry, there's three big secrets. When we moved into a civilized society over the hundreds of previous years, basically we have desalinated water. All the salts are taken out of our water as much as they can, but magnesium's removed. They did a great study in Israel. What happened was certain cities still had groundwater and certain cities had desalinated water where the salt is removed, so magnesium's removed. The people that were still on groundwater had significantly less heart problems. In this study, it was like a year longer of life. The more you decrease the magnesium, the more heart problems. So AFib, heart attacks, chronic heart problems, they shot up like a rocket. You still want magnesium for those other things. Then they did a study in Denmark from 2005 to 2016 at areas that use groundwater, which had magnesium in it, and then they looked at areas which did not use groundwater, so the magnesium was removed in our tap water, and it was the same thing. Much less acute heart attacks, and they looked at 4 million people. They lived longer, and these are dramatic results. I can't believe that this was not promoted more. You know why? Same kind of story in my videos. Nobody's making money selling magnesium because it's dirt cheap. It's not an expensive medication that someone can patent.
And following up on cheap cures, for COVID-19, low magnesium levels significantly correlated with infections and infection severity. In this hospital study, it showed that people who had low magnesium had longer hospital stays, higher death rates, and more complications overall. So make sure to get your magnesium. It's dirt cheap and it's easy. It's safe.
And then there was another study that basically magnesium lowers your levels of atrial fibrillation. That's a study from 2002 to 2015. There's a proposed study too. This is a hypothesis. If we added magnesium to our tap water, which is still debatable cost-wise and exactly how it would be done, this article estimates that 4.5 million people per year would have less heart attacks and less strokes based on the numbers from these previous studies. That's insane. If you could save 5 million people a year doing something dirt cheap that hardly costs anything and is completely safe, why would you not do it? I'm doing it. I take magnesium every morning. And that's not even counting the benefits of chronic pain, sleeping better, nerve function, diabetes, all that stuff. Even if it doesn't help with that, it's already worth it. And big secret number two is historically we used to drink it out of our water. Humans were designed to handle magnesium. You can drink it as much as you like. You don't really need to rely on food. Get it in your water. That's what I do with big secret number two. I buy magnesium citrate. I bought something like a 5-pound bag for like 15 bucks. Something crazy. I don't remember the exact price, and I bought it a long time ago. It's lasted me years. With inflation, it's probably up, so don't yell at me at the comments, or feel free, because I love the comments. When I drink my water in the morning, I take a 1/2 gram spoon, so 500. I just put in my water. You know, you're drinking your coffee anyway, which helps you go to the bathroom. The magnesium can help with that too. I've had great results. That's all I do. I put some vitamin C in that water as well. Secret number two, just buy a big bag of magnesium citrate. I put some links down below. Don't buy the fancy expensive stuff. Hopefully it starts helping you right away. Big secret number three. I mentioned 60% of the magnesium is in your bone and the remaining, except for 1%, is inside your cells. So it's not possible to measure it with a blood test. But that's what studies show. This is not an accurate level. You could be very deficient in the rest of your body. So 99% of your body could be very deficient, but because your blood's normal, you're given the thumbs up as not being deficient. That's why it's hard to know for sure who's deficient. That's why I look at these water studies, because people getting more magnesium, it builds up more in your bone, builds up more in the cells, works with those 300 coenzymes. No great tests. I looked at studies, blood tests, the urine test, the oral test. They're not standardized, they're not really reliable, and there's a great deal of confusion. That's why I just take magnesium every day. Makes a big difference for me. And if that helped for bone strength, for all of this stuff, take care of yourselves, because this is something that's dirt cheap. The pharma companies will never tell you about this because no one's making any money, but the studies are unbelievable and it's very safe. So take care of yourselves, and also learn about vitamin D and vitamin K2, very beneficial.